The case was a workers' comp case, nothing too special about it. The subject was a 50-something male subject who resided in a normal residential neighborhood. The house was owned by the subject and his wife, and by all indications, it appeared that they had the usual 2.63 kids living with them, 2 cars registered at the residence, and the subject had an arm injury from getting hit by a large piece of equipment in his arm at work. His injuries left him unable to perform even the most menial of tasks at the office. Now, my client had requested 3 days, 1 weekday, 1 weekend day, and a third day to be determined. That is something to remember, folks. If you get involved with a lot of insurance jobs, many times they will send it over with specific days to do the job. This is pretty much standard operating procedure for these types of contracts. The nice part with this one was they left it up to me. Any weekday, any weekend, and then a third day to be determined. As I conducted my pre-surveillance backgrounds, it appeared that they belonged to a local church, so I knew a Sunday might be a good day to go out. It is often good to do surveillance on a Sunday if you know there is a high likelihood of the subject going to church, as they are usually a bit distracted when they have the whole family loaded up in the car. Now, if I follow my subject to a church, I never go inside the church while conducting surveillance. It is just a policy of mine, and it would make obtaining video covertly very difficult at best without getting burned. Most churches have security personnel on site. Many times these folks are law enforcement, and a newbie in church stands out like a sore thumb. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. I will, however, follow them there and get all of the video that I can when they arrive, when they exit their car, when they walk into the church, then again when they leave. And many times, from my experience, families might go out to eat after church or go to some family event, so it's a good day for surveillance. Given that info, I figured Sunday was my weekend day. Then I decided I would do a Monday after that Sunday just to see if he happened to have another job. That left me with a third day to pick up all on my own. Most times I will try to set a possible third day on my schedule so I have it, but I keep myself open to change just in case something comes up and makes me believe that another day is good. In this case, if I got good stuff on Sunday, I would want to do another Sunday, possibly. So I wanted to keep that in mind. When I checked the weather forecast, I saw snow in the forecast for the following week, 2 weeks out. Now, normally I don't like to push start dates out so far. I really like to get the work in, get it on the schedule, and get it done so I can get the dollars rolling in as quickly as possible. However, this case looked perfect to do a case over a weekend with snow in the forecast. Now, I also know, on occasion, the old weatherman may be wrong in his forecasting, but I figured I would take the gamble, and I scheduled it over that snowy weekend. The forecast was for snow Saturday, Sunday, and ending Monday morning, so it could end up being a big storm Saturday. When I went out, it was nice for the most part in the morning. Nothing too crazy weather-wise or activity-wise. I did see both of his vehicles in the garage when one of the kids came out to play, so I knew there was a good chance that he was home that day. Early that afternoon, here it comes. Light snow at first, then a little heavier, then the wind kicks in. I am hoping I don't get stuck in the neighborhood if it snows too heavy, but then I only had a couple of hours left in the day, so I stuck it out. Wouldn't you know it, Murphy's Law kicked in that afternoon. About 15 minutes before my shift was going to end, I see the garage door open, and out comes the subject's vehicle with him driving and the entire family loaded up. Folks, the chase is on. Now, I followed them slowly to a grocery store. It was fairly slow driving as the snow was really starting to come down. At the store, they stocked up with canned goods, they stocked up with frozen goods, and they stocked up with snowbound goods like popcorn, candy bar, pizzas, hot cocoa, and all the fixings. It was obvious that they didn't plan to be leaving the house for a few days. We get back to the residence, and at this point we already had about 3 inches of snow. The subject parks the car in the garage. They get it unloaded, then he comes back outside with his son, and they start shoveling the snow. Now, if you are not from an area where you get big snowstorms, you may not know it, but usually people will go out several times during these storms, so when it's all over, they don't have to go out and try to figure out how to shovel out 2 or 3 foot of snow. They got done fairly quick, and then they headed back in, and I got to head home. But I had a huge decision to make. Do I go out the next day or not? The forecast was for 8 to 12 inches of blowing snow. It was going to drift up and it was going to get cold, and I was about 2 hours from home on a good day. Now, I figured it would take me at least 4 hours to get home and probably longer to get back if I went out the next day, provided I could even get there the next day if the roads don't get closed. So I decided to just get a hotel room and spend the night and go back out bright and early in the morning. I headed back out the next morning after about another 6 inches of snow had fell. The forecast still called for another 2 to 4 inches, so it was going to be fun. When I rounded the corner, there was my subject at about 6:15 a.m. on a Sunday, shoveling the snow. I couldn't believe it. I had to drive right past him as he shoveled away and waved at me like I was just somebody from the neighborhood. Now, I had got all the way down to the end of the block, and I wasn't able to find a safe place to park, so I rounded the corner slowly, and then I stopped right there in the middle of the intersection where I could see him shoveling, and I got my video. I sat there for about 15 minutes shooting my video. The visibility was pretty low, but that helped me a bit too, as he probably couldn't see my car all that well. I then found a good place to park and not get stuck in a small parking lot right outside of the neighborhood. I then made periodic drive-bys every hour on the side streets, alternating each time to see if he was out. I was able to establish a pattern of about every 2 hours that he would come out and shovel. It worked out well for me. I was able to contact my client. I told them I was going to work some extra hours that day, most likely, given his pattern. In a total, I got video of him 4 times that day shoveling snow. The neighbors probably thought I was just some weirdo just sitting in the middle of the intersections, but it worked out well. It was cold enough, it was windy enough, and it was snowing enough that nobody was out driving around and nobody was going to come and see what I was doing there. Monday rolled around and I did the same thing. I got a little bit of video once of my subject early in the day, but then I never saw him again. It snowed enough that no one was going anywhere unless they had to. Most of the businesses were closed down and most of the highways were closed too. In fact, I had to wait until late afternoon to get out of town due to the road closures, but I had a good 3-day surveillance. I ended up working it 2 more weekends for the client. I did get video on 2 Sundays as he went to church, many times as he drove his car, carried all kinds of things, shoveling tons of snow, and you know what? It really seemed to me that his arm injury was pretty much all healed up.